It is a make-or-break moment for the World Trade Organization as Kenya is set to host Africa's ever first WTO Ministerial Conference here in Nairobi. We have going big on this historic conference here on KTN Prime. My name is Ben Kitili. Many thanks for joining us on KTN Prime. First, the top stories tonight.
We've had the information from him, and therefore any other thing after this is not necessary unless there is need to clarify a point with him.
Anti-graft body now drops summons against Raila. And from poaching to gender, it's a full entry for the World Trade Organization conference.
Sahihi ya kushika mtu akikushika hata ukiwa na vitu zenye wanataka samaki zako ndio watachukua zote na unarudi bila samaki.
The fishing community is caught at the crossroads on Lake Victoria.
Utakuta kijana mdogo miaka 16, 14, 13 wanatusumbua mitaani.
Tumeprofile suspects wote. Tumekuwa na mkutano na chiefs, assistant chiefs. Tumepata majina yao wote.
And rising concerns over the spread of terror by deadly Mombasa gangs.
Welcome to the program. William Sila is our sign language interpreter. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission will not arrest CORD leader Raila Odinga after all. The commission says Raila has complied with a request to provide details on the Eurobond saga. Raila is reported to have done this through his lawyers. KTN's Sharon Momanyi begins our coverage tonight.
After the mounted pressure from the government for CORD leader Raila Odinga to appear before the EACC and support claims of Eurobond cash misappropriation, the anti-graft body now says that Raila need not record a statement.
The Right Honorable Raila Odinga has complied with the terms of the summons through his lawyers via a letter dated 11th of December 2015, providing a summary of his concerns on the Eurobond.
The commission says it is treating the letter as a statement, though EACC head Halake Wako says the statement does not have supporting documents.
Supportive documents means that when I say there is 1 million shillings which has come to me and it has been spent in this way and that, whether in the right or wrong ways or in a way that is expected, but what we see here is a statement which is describing the bond process and the figures and facts and figures that surround the inflow of the resources in as far as the Eurobond is concerned. It does not show expenditures and how the expenditures have been faulty or correct.
EACC says it invoked the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act as well as the National Police Service Act when it issued summons to Raila to appear before the commission Monday 14th after he had declined an earlier invitation on the 4th. The body further says that it had begun investigations into the use of the Eurobond fund earlier in the year when concerns were raised on alleged embezzlement of the funds. They say that all individuals involved in the matter, including the CS and PS of the National Treasury, as well as the Controller of Budget, have recorded statements with the body.
In the event the Commission requires more clarification from the Right Honorable Raila, we shall request him to do so. The Commission is currently progressing investigations on the subject matter on high priority basis and will submit a report as soon as these investigations are completed.
As this happened, pro-Raila youth in Kisumu staged demonstrations in parts of the town. The youth took to the streets protesting alleged harassment of opposition leaders who condemn graft. The early morning demonstrations kicked off from Kondele to Odinga Streets in the town's central business district. Police had given the rally a go-ahead on agreement that the demos should be held peacefully. There was mounting pressure from the government for Raila to appear before the Anti-Graft Commission, insisting that he must back up his accusations on alleged misappropriation of Eurobond funds. But Raila had maintained that he would not appear before the body as all his queries had been presented. Sharon Momanyi, KTN News.
New twist in the controversial sovereign bond saga, and that is the basis of our big question tonight. We are asking you, is the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission EACC justified to seek evidence from the opposition leader Raila Odinga? Tell us what you think. SMS your yes or no opinion to the number 22155. You can tweet us at Ben_Kitili, at KTN News, and at KTN Kenya. Shall be sampling some of your views during this live newscast. Let's cross to the coast now, and police in Mombasa are tracing possible leads to counter a fast-spreading network of two deadly gangs that have mushroomed in some slums of the coastal city. The dreaded knife-wielding gangs Wakali Kwanza and Wakali Wao operate mainly in Kisauni, Kongowea, Changamwe and Jomvu areas. Police link the operations to a section of the political class said to be funding and equipping youth as young as 18 years old. KTN's coast reporter Francis Otomwa now reports.
The emergency section of the Coast General Hospital continues to register a rising number of casualties, men and women brought here with deep knife cuts and other injuries. Some of the cases too gross to picture. They must be referred to other major health facilities, a scenario that has started to send shivers down the spines of people in the coastal city. Cases that have a strong connection with two deadly gangs going by the names Wakali Wao and Wakali Kwanza.
Utakuta kijana mdogo miaka 16, 14, 13 wanatusumbua mitaani. Wakisha kula zile vitu vyao, wakiingia mtaani wanafanya mambo yao ambayo hayafai.
The two gangs are said to operate in secrecy, and there are fears that the activities could now be stretching even to areas that they were unheard of. Kisauni, Kongowea and Bamburi areas are particularly considered to be their strongholds. The number of those who've been killed by the gangs is not clear, though records show that countless number of people have been maimed and robbed by the gangs who take control of the estates under the cover of darkness.
Tumeprofile suspects wote. Tumekuwa na mkutano na machiefs, assistant chiefs. Tumepata majina yao wote.
Niwahakikishie kabla ya Februari mwaka ujao 2016 tutakuwa tumemaliza hilo gegi kabisa ama mapema.
Hassan Hamis has lived in Kisauni all his life. He tells me the deadly Wakali Kwanza has been in existence for a period spanning more than a year. Most of the members are said to be well-known drug addicts, but law enforcers have just fallen short of countering the network.
Serikali ikiwa yataka kufanya kazi yake ili kundi limalizike, wanaweza. Manake wao wako na power. Na wakisema sisi tuingia Kisauni tunamaliza hii shida ya Kisauni, wanaweza, lakini ikiwa hawataki ni wao wenyewe tu hawataki.
And according to Hamis, the deadly gangs are not leaving the town any soon.
Kuna wengine washamaliza skuli, kuna wengine wamemaliza 8, kuna wengine wamemaliza form 4, kuna wengine wamemaliza university, kazi hakuna. Umeelewa? Sasa mtu atakuja nyumbani, ikiwa kazi hakuna, college hakuna, na yule 8 ajui atapelekwa wapi, basi atakaribishwa wapi? Kwenye maskani.
It has been alleged that there are some politicians who are closely linked to the secret organizations, but their emergence so close to the next general election remains suspect. A section of politicians have however come out boldly to condemn activities of the gangs. They want those linked to the gangs to be named and arrested.
So it is to your interest, watu wa Jomvu tukae vile vile, watu wa Likoni, watu wa Kisauni, tulinde maeneo yetu. Hatufanyii mtu, tujifanyie wenyewe.
Wakali Kwanza. Yaani mtu anasema yeye ni mkali kwanza. Kwani ana shida polisi? Kama ni Awiti ndio kiongozi ya Wakali Kwanza, shika.
Recently, an ex-Kenya Wildlife Service officer believed to commandeer the groups was arrested. At the same time, law enforcers are still trailing an administration police officer said to be part of the deadly syndicate. Last Saturday, another suspected gang leader of the two groups, Mohammed Bakari, was killed by a mob in what the police termed as a revenge attack of gang wars in Kisauni. Police have now intensified their presence in areas that have been labeled red. 7 youths said to be terrorizing residents at Old Town and believed to be working with the network were nabbed and arraigned in court. Crude weapons, bottles of liquor, and rolls of bang were recovered from them.
Their ideology is not known. Their intentions still unclear. But this latest security headache is proving a nightmare to security apparatus here in Mombasa, and what now police consider a must-win affair. Francis Ontomwa, KTN News, Kongowea, Mombasa.
Now, it appears that the woes of Kenyan fishermen at Lake Victoria are far from over. The fishermen complain against harassment by Ugandan security officers. They say their cries for help have gone unheeded and now wonder who will come to their rescue. KTN's Victor Ogale with the details from the lake.
The lake license, as referred to by the locals here, has for the past 2 months brought about suffering to Kenyan fishermen in Lake Victoria, especially those near Uganda such as Busia and Siaya counties.
In October this year, the Ugandan government passed a law that sought to see any water vessel that enters into their territory possess a special number plate. But despite Kenyan water vessels possessing that number plate, they still face harassment from Ugandan security officers who go as far as confiscating their fish as well as their fishing gear.
Kenyan fishermen have been charged in Ugandan courts while others have been jailed for fishing in Ugandan territorial waters. Islands that have for a long time been known to belong to Kenya have been turned into resting grounds for Ugandan soldiers.
Pale hakuna sababu sahihi ya kushika mtu. Akikushika hata ukiwa na vitu zenye wanataka, samaki zako ndio watachukua zote na unarudi bila samaki.
Kiaraha nikiwa hapa Kenya nisiposumbuliwa. Hata nasikia uchungu nikisikia Mkenya pia amenyanyashwa ikiwa kule kwetu Uganda. Kwa sababu sisi wote ni wananchi ya nchi ambayo inajulikana kama East Africa.
Baada ya kupata kibandiko hicho, hawa watu bado tena wanajeshi wa Uganda walileta maneno mengine tena ambao hayakuwemo. Ukiwa na kibandiko wanaanza kuambia kwamba kila mvuvi lazima awe na leseni.
May this year, the close to 100 beach management units officials from the affected counties held a meeting with the Ugandan officials together with the fisheries department over the issue. However, the deliberations are yet to be honored by the Ugandans.
Wanakuja hapa, Kenya Revenue inawakaribisha. Bingi yao ikiharibika inatengenezwa hapa. Inatoka hapo wamekaribishwa, wamepikiwa chai, wamekunywa, wamepewa lunch. Wakitoka hapo wakienda wakipita tu hapa hivi karibu wanakutana na boat ya Kenya kikuja. Imeleta watu wa Lolwe. Wanageuza boat, wanarudi nayo mpaka Hama.
We are so much worried because these people are just coming up to Ndeda, Oyamo, or Mageta. So we don't know where the border is.
Clarence Owori is a boat owner to Hanya Beach, Siaya County. She has had to part with over 200,000 shillings for her 3 boats and her 6 crew members following the new law. On the other hand, the beaches are manned by administration police who have no expertise about water bodies, unlike the Ugandan counterparts who are well equipped.
So, and it will expire in December. So that allows me to only do the fishing for only 2 months, which is very expensive on my side because the kind of business I'm doing is also not promising.
Willis Oching is the vice chair of the Livestock, Agriculture and Fisheries Committee in Siaya County, and we find him with fishermen at Ohanya Beach deliberating on the same issue after news that a Kenyan boat had been arrested by Ugandan security organs near Mageta Island.
Our fishermen has been taken for granted by the Ugandan personnel, and here comes a case whereby even right now those who has managed to have the number plates, still when they go into the lake, there are issues that you can't cross with your fish to Kenya. Give us some small fish, some pieces of fish here so that we take for your, as a security.
On average, such a beach harvests 3 tons daily with a daily revenue collection of over 500,000 shillings. However, with the new Ugandan law and police harassment, the figures may be destined for a downfall. Victor Ogale, KTN News, in the county of Siaya.
Across the borders, former Burundian Defense Minister Cyril Ndayirukye has been charged in court with plotting a coup against President Pierre Nkurunziza. Ndayirukye appeared in the Supreme Court with 27 army generals and police officers. They are accused of being behind the failed plot to oust President Nkurunziza in May this year. As opposition to his bid for a third term grew, Mr. Ndayirukye and the other accused told the judge they have been kept in isolation in inhumane conditions. As KTN's news editor Lilian Odera reports, the charges came as Kenyans and Burundians participated in a vigil here in Nairobi for the 87 people killed in Bujumbura on Friday.
The explosive sounds of heavy weapons clouded the air in Burundi Friday as most Bujumbura residents remained locked indoors. The confrontation was between Burundi forces and rebels, locally known as Sindumunja, who attacked military bases across the capital. This was the result. The scenes in Bujumbura Saturday morning. Bodies littered the streets. The silence of the dead telling the tale of the night's mystery. The official body count was 87 from that assault. And Bujumbura went into mourning. Residents claim some of the dead had been rounded up by the police during the day after house-to-house searches on Friday.
As I was trying to close the door, I saw a bunch of policemen walking past. Then they spotted a bunch of men in the area and they asked them to stop. The men got scared and they started running, and the policemen started opening fire. At that time, our son was trying to close the door, and when the soldiers spotted him, they just shot him there and then.
But the military have a different narrative.
On the side of the enemy, 79 of them died. 49 have been captured, 97 arms seized, and lots of ammunition. On our side, we lost 8 soldiers, 4 of them from the army and 4 from the police. 29 have been injured, 9 soldiers and 11 police.
And the world is reacting. In Nairobi, a group of Burundians and Kenyans held a vigil for the dead in Burundi. Figures indicate that over 300 people have been killed so far since April, when President Nkurunziza expressed intention to run for another term in office.
This vigil is important in terms of solidarity with our brothers and sisters in Burundi, and to say that enough is enough. It doesn't have to get to a genocide, it shouldn't get to a genocide, and we don't have to label it a genocide for intervention to be done. This vigil today is to put impetus to our leaders, particularly, I believe, those of the East African community, to do something about the situation in Burundi. 80 people dying in the last weekend alone, more than 80 actually, is unacceptable.
On Friday, we saw a series of killings which we have investigated on the ground in Burundi, which look very much like extrajudicial executions. It's absolutely essential that there are investigations for this now. But moreover, it's important that the East African community, the leaders of East Africa and the African Union stand up and take action for their neighbours. It's essential that there's a mediation, that the different Burundian actors come to the table to try and resolve this escalating human rights crisis that's spiralling out of control.
Meanwhile, Burundi plans to slash public spending by 16% next year and expects foreign aid to almost halve as relations with donors have soured during recent political turmoil, according to a draft 2016 budget passed by the cabinet.
It's upon Africans to speak about Burundi, and we are hoping that our appeal today and our heartfelt prayers for Burundi are going to be felt by President Nkurunziza, and he's going to do something about it, because you can't start killing a citizen every single day. How many are you going to kill? And the fear is for the entire continent. Burundi is next to Rwanda, and our biggest fear is that it's not going to be a slow genocide, and by the time we wake up it's too late. Right now the killings are in their hundreds, it's going to go to their thousands, and we need to stop the bleeding because the blood has been shed. Africa should come together and send a peacekeeping union, just some simple thing. They haven't even done basic simple things.
Earlier this week, the European Union, the biggest donor to Burundi, said it would partially suspend new aid due to government abuses in relation to rule of law, democratic principles, and human rights in the nation of 10 million people. The EU had been due to disburse about 450 million euros to Burundi over half a decade until 2020, but the bloc said it would suspend all new support except for humanitarian causes and projects where the population directly benefits. Lilian Odera, KTN News.
Welcome back. Now, as the upcoming World Trade Organization summit hits the home stretch, African governments have been urged to facilitate women to trade if they want the continent to achieve accelerated economic growth. These were some of the key outcomes of the Women in Business Forum held today. Among speakers in that forum was Liberian President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who called for inclusion of women to play a more proactive role in trade. KTN's Abia Gina now reports.
A global focus will be on Kenya as the country plays host to the 10th World Trade Organization Ministerial Conference, the first to be held on African soil.
Let me welcome you to Nairobi.
To kickstart the conference, over 200 women in business met to discuss some of the key issues hindering global trade, with gender inequality forming a better part of the talks, which were graced by Liberian President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf.
Today, the challenge is to move women into business, to move them from the farm, from the marketplace, into a facility where they can be at a level where they get more benefit, they participate more in the life of the economy.
This conference is built on a powerful and feasible truth, which is women are the true catalysts of development and prosperity, and that is more particular in Africa.
According to a recent report by the Africa Development Bank, about 75% of women are living in poverty, a trend that has worsened household incomes, leaving a majority of families exposed. Currently, women constitute a bulk of traders across East Africa, despite majority of them having to contend with various barriers to trade, such as lack of free movement of goods and services at border posts.
The scale of the opportunity we are losing out through insufficient inclusion of women in business and enterprise is outstanding. A recent World Bank report titled Engendering Development suggests that women reinvest up to 90% of their income in education, health, and nutrition for their families and communities compared to 30 to 40% for men.
Today, the women who are moving up the ladder into small and medium-sized businesses, the ones who are starting to move from taking their commodities from the table and being able to package them, are the women.
Other areas of focus that women seek quick interventions to trade effectively include access to capital and land rights.
We are also looking to create a program that will give more women access to technology so that they can bring out the true innovators within.
Land inheritance remains a touchy subject, with women in most communities not being land owners, a factor experts say has compounded the matter, making it difficult for women to break loose from the poverty trap.
The challenge is, how do we have targeted measures that address rural poverty, where the majority of the poor in the rural areas are women, where the women remain powerless even in family economies, where women weeds, for example, they will tend the cows, they will weed the coffee, they will tend the tea. When they deliver, it is to an account that is operated by their husbands. And they have no control over the proceeds of their own labor. The radical transformation that mobile money has done in Kenya is an example about how technology can start allowing women greater appropriation of the proceeds of their labor.
What we can do about their rights to land. And today we've just passed a new Lands Right Act that's going to give land to the communities land individually to women in equal measure as men.
Access to funds is a critical enabler for women to invest in business. According to the Deputy President, the Jubilee administration seeks to allocate more funds towards women empowerment.
We have created special funding instruments to speed up the mainstreaming of women into the marketplace.
The push to have more women take part in business comes at a time when the government is keen on increasing access to capital as well as government procurement opportunities so as to have this particular segment of the society be involved in the development of the economy. Abiagina, reporting for KTN News in Nairobi.
At the same time, Africans could benefit from intra-African trade by the year 2022 if the WTO and the Trade and Development Symposium deliberations go as planned. According to the WTO, intra-African trade was 12% in 2012. This is in stark contrast to much higher rates of intra-regional trade in more developed regions of the world, with 60% in Europe, 40% in North America, and 30% in Asia. However, United Nations Economic Commission for Africa estimates that earlier negotiations for Africa-wide continental free area could increase trade by $35 billion, equivalent to 52% above the baseline. It is further estimated that agricultural and industrial exports would increase by $4 billion and $21 billion respectively. The news came during the Trade and Development Symposium launch, which runs parallel with the WTO conference. The Trade Symposium is meant to offer a vital platform.
Will guide our collective social, economic and environmental objectives over the next 15 years. Moving towards a more sustainable world must be an international, regional, national, and especially local priority.
Welcome back. You're watching KTN News, and we are glad you're tuned in. This week, our major focus is on the World Trade Organization 10th Ministerial Conference that is happening for the first time in Kenya. And there's so many players in Kenya, just as they are in other parts of the world, who are looking forward to what is going to be discussed during these 3 days of the conference. And joining me now in studio, we have the Vice Chairperson of, Vice President of Kenya Private Sector Alliance, that is Raila Macharia. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, everybody has their own expectations. What are your expectations from this conference as the Kenya Private Sector?
The Kenya Private Sector Alliance represents over 100,000 businesses across all the different sectors, large corporates, small businesses. And we are hoping to push this week for a larger, a fairer global trade regime. Market access for our goods, both agricultural and non-agricultural, improved trade of services, and a reduction in non-tariff barriers. All those obstacles that governments have that make it difficult for our goods as Africa and Kenya to enter their markets.
All right. And so when you talk about better trade regimes that we're having in Africa, you know, we've talked about this before. We have the East African Community, we have also the COMESA bloc, and we have SADC. But right now what we're seeing is that the African economies are growing at averagely 5.6%. What more can we do for us to be able to trade in a balanced way amongst each other?
Okay. Well, you're talking about intra-Africa trade, which is still at a low rate. We, compared to Asia and Europe, our percentage of the trade that we do with each other is still very low. We are working on trade blocks, ways of reducing barriers amongst ourselves and creating common markets as a way for our goods to move more easily within. We're also talking about between the different trade blocks, the EACC, SADC,
to see if we can, and COMESA, whether we can harmonize into a tripartite agreement that covers all those countries and makes it one common market.
All right.
Yeah.
And also we've seen a lot of talk about the Doha agenda that was adopted in 2001. In 2013, we also saw the Bali package that was adopted. But a lot of the Doha agenda is still coming back in 2015.
Yes.
What is it about the Doha agreement that was never implemented that now we want implemented?
Yes, we are very keen as developing countries, and Africa and Kenya, to see some of the richer countries create fairer market access for our goods. A lot of them are able to keep our goods out by heavily subsidizing their farmers, for example, which makes it our goods less competitive as we come into those markets. These are trade barriers. In addition to that, we see that kind of price distortion makes the prices low, so that when they come into the global market, the commodity price is lower, which makes it difficult for us to sell our goods on the global markets. So we would like to see that made fairer. It's unfair, and we feel that there needs to be a change to make it more progressive, so that our goods are able to enter those markets.
All right. So as it is, you know, there's been talk about how developing countries need developed countries more, but it seems to be the other way around. It seems that they need us more than we actually might need them, especially in terms of agriculture. What do you have to say about improving the environment for ourselves and also for countries outside of the African continent for us to actually say we're now at a leveled playing field?
The first thing we need to realize is that now we're a global economy. There's nobody who can be an island unto themselves. So it's very important for us to remember that we have to keep negotiating, we have to keep pushing. Another thing to bear in mind, a lot of people have been saying, why don't we just kind of take the ball and go home? Why are we still playing in this game if it's so unfair? We have to remember that all these countries have bilateral relationships as well. The US is one example. Even though the WTO regime might have some ways to go, we still have AGOA, for example, the Africa Growth Opportunity Act, that has a list of African goods that they're allowing into their market and giving special concessions. So we always have to be patient as we push for these things, remembering that we have another network of relationships with each of these nations.
All right. And finally, there are a lot of agreements and a lot of discussions that are going to be held. Today we had Women in Business and the China Roundtable as well that was held. And what are your specific areas of interest as the Kenya private sector?
Well, as a Kenya Private Sector Alliance, because we are so broad and representative of the private sector at large, we're looking at all these different areas. Women in business is a very big push for us, but trade and investment in general and the investment climate is a very big priority. So we want to see, particularly from the WTO this time, the same agenda as that Kenya has been pushing for. We want access for agricultural goods, specifically the reduction of subsidies in the richer countries that are blocking our markets. We want to see access for non-agricultural goods, you know, things like manufactured goods for our industries. We want to see improved trades and services, and we want to see less penalties when we value add. You know that value addition is a very big priority for us as Kenya, and we don't want regimes where duties are increased as you add value. This has been a big obstacle for us. Those are the areas where we're trying to see progress. In addition, there's some other discussions that we're having. Because we're vulnerable, small and vulnerable economies, we fall under that category, to see some of the technical assistance and financing that is coming out for those countries and less developed countries also being a gain and a win at the end of this week for Kenya.
All right, so Kenya is not only big on agriculture, you know, it is as big on services as it is an agrarian economy. Exactly. So why are we focusing much of our attention on agriculture and not on other services like technology?
Well, agriculture is very important to Kenya and to many African countries. One reason is because it's still over 70% of our economy, and so if you have a gain in agriculture, you'll see that have a multiplier effect. A lot of our foreign exchange from coffee, tea, horticultural services falls under agriculture, very important for Kenya as well. And in our new industrialization plan, leather goods, cotton, you know, with textiles, fish, in addition to the traditional foreign exchange earners, are all priorities. So this is a very important area for Kenya, very strategic for us. So even as we know that we do have a brand and a priority area in ICT and oil and gas services increasingly, we do want to make some headway in agriculture, very critical for us.
All right, well, thank you so much, Laila. We do appreciate the time taken to talk to us about the World Trade Organization 10th Ministerial Conference. Laila Macharia is the Vice Chair of the Kenya Private Sector Alliance. And today being a Monday, we do focus big on agriculture. There's a new kind of fish farming taking root across the country as consumers showcase their rising sophistication. Ornamental fish farming has morphed from just a hobby to a viable commercial venture. On this week's edition of The Next Frontier, Philip KTN visits an urban ornamental fish farmer who makes a living from selling beautiful fish.
The aquatic industry in Kenya has grown greatly over the last few decades. Promotion of aquatic started in the early 1920s as fish became a substitute source of protein and also income in rural areas. But an expanding middle class and rising consumer sophistication has birthed a new kind of fishing, ornamental fish farming. Meet Peter Mwangi, a seasoned urban ornamental fish farmer who keeps multicolored fish. But these beautiful fish are not for food. They are kept purely for aesthetic appeal.
Ornamental fish is not something that I planned to do. I think this is something that came to me by default.
Peter is catching on a fad that has gained popularity worldwide and contributed to the steady increase in aquarium fish trade globally. The fishes are ready for sale in 4 to 6 months, with the Siamese fighter fish, mollyfish, goldfish, fantail platies standing out as fan favorites.
But the ornamental fish is more or less like a pet because it's put in the house and it's much more colorful and people like observing them.
The prices for aquarium fish is determined in inches, unlike tilapia and catfish whose prices are pegged on their age and weight. According to Peter, the trade can be done in a backyard since it does not take up too much space and still gives one healthy returns.
For the fish now we have farmers in Kenya who literally import the fingerlings from all over the world. They put them in their ponds, and the moment they become big, they sell them to us. So nowadays we have a proper chain where we can be able to get our fishes easily.
1-inch goldfish fingerlings sell at 150 shillings, orans at 500 shillings an inch, and black molly at 400 shillings. A mature ornamental fish can cost up to 15,000 shillings or 20,000 shillings, and Peter insists that there are great opportunities available in ornamental fish culture, for they can be marketed within the region and also in America, Europe and Asian markets.
Nowadays with about 10,000 shillings you can actually be able to have an aquarium in your house, but that's going to be a smaller aquarium, more or less like one of those ones there. And also you can even have an aquarium that's worth $500,000.
The primary health preventive measure in ornamental fish culture and breeding is proper management of water quality, because these fish are highly sensitive to acidity levels and temperature. The fish are also susceptible to common diseases like fin rot, white spot and mouth fungus.
So for the fish, ideally, because we're only feeding them to keep them alive, you have to give them a nutritious diet. So we feed them at least once per day. In other situations, you can feed them twice per day.
Ornamental fish farming is a highly promising venture, especially to the unemployed youth. It has low startup cost, need very little space and minimal manpower. With the growth of the middle class in the country growing significantly each year, so as their demand for finer things in life, and apart from keeping cats and dogs in their houses as pets, a majority of them are now keeping ornamental fish in their houses, driving the demand for this kind of business in the country. Philip KTN for The Next Frontier.
And ornamental fish is not edible. We'll now have a look at the money markets, and well, that's it for KTN Business. My name is Joy Doreen Vera.
Jetted back in the country Monday evening.
The Cape Town edition marked Kenya's best performance in almost a year after Kenya finished second in Wellington Sevens, losing out to England. Despite Kenya finishing fourth, Captain Collins Injera and William Baka were named among the Cape Town Dream Team. Head coach Benjamin Ayimba praised his team's attitude during the tournament as lively.
Very progressive. Like we said, we needed to grow every step after the qualifiers. Things that started working out in Dubai, and we're seeing a lot of progress then. I think it's a matter of going back, reviewing what we did, polishing one or two things, and that give us a better result in South Africa.
Going down into Cape Town, we decided that we have to concentrate more, focus more on the game, and really when we have the lead, we have to strive and work hard and maintain it, and I think it went well for us.
The head tactician also praised his debutants for the showing they put in South Africa.
This was a chance for them to prove themselves, wanted to come on board for the World Rugby Series going into the Olympics.
If you look at the tour, the debutants really had a good tour. I think every debutant scored in their first outing, and just for them scoring a try in the ARB is something good, because it means that they've already opened their account there, and they can keep on looking forward to scoring more tries in the ARB.
The team also feels Kenya is on the right path towards its glory days.
Starting well and getting the points and finishing 9th is such a morale booster even in the team. So hopefully going into the next one, we still want to collect more points and be in the top of the table, top half of the table.
After the Cape Town 7 series, defending champions Fiji topped the log with 35 points, while Cape Town winners South Africa are second with 35 points. USA are third, while Argentina are fourth. Kenya, after accumulating 20 points, is placed 2 places better than the Dubai leg on the 9th position. With the next leg taking place on the 30th of January next year in Wellington, Shujaa has been placed in the same pool with Australia, Canada and Portugal. Robinson Okenye, KTN Sports.
In football, the inaugural Murray the Youth Challenge Cup came to an end on Sunday at the Soweto grounds as Utawala United were crowned champions after beating Dallas FC 5-4 on post-match penalties. The tournament, which was aimed at giving talented young players from Embakasi region an opportunity to showcase their skills, attracted hundreds of fans, including Harambee Stars assistant coach Musa Otieno and former goalkeeper Mahmoud Abbas. 38 teams were drawn from 4 zones, including Utawala and Soweto. The winners, Utawala, walked away with 250,000 shillings.
The cup was just to bring the youth together, the youths who are engaged in drugs, and now we saw an opportunity to bring them together.
I think we need a lot of things, and those are the changes which we are talking about Kenyan football, because we need to go to the grassroots.
Saa kama hizi ungekuta wote huko katika maeneo ya starehe, lakini kutoka mechi zianze mambo yamekuwa kama mnavyoona. Kuangalia crowd ya sasa hamna ilikuwa.
Congratulations to the young lads. Now, Members Beach Volleyball Club are the winners of the National Beach Volleyball Circuit that came to an end at the Jamboree Beach in Mombasa. In the men's finals, Members dismissed led by Ibrahim Oswor and Sila Matiso dismissed Pwani Stars 22-0 in sets of 22 points to 20 and 21-14 to walk away as the winners. In the playoff, Blades dismissed General Service Unit 2-0 to take 3rd place. In the women's competition played on round-robin basis, shiners were declared winners after winning 2 matches. The match was also used to select the Kenyan team that will take part in the 2016 Olympics.
Mchezo wa circuit wa leo tulikuwa tunajaribu kutafuta wachezaji ambao tunaweza waweka katika professional list. Kwa vile mnavyojua timu yetu ya Kenya ili qualify kwenda semi-finals ya Olympics ambayo host itajulikana mwakani mwezi wa pili.
So our top story tonight, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission EACC will not arrest the Coalition for Reforms and Democracy leader Raila Odinga. And on the big question tonight, we were asking you, is the EACC justified in seeking evidence from Raila Odinga. A lot of responses from you. I'm just going to sample a few. Lamford M on Twitter says, no, EACC is an independent institution. They should carry out their own investigations. Yatich Zef on Twitter, yes, it's prudent to have collaborative evidence alongside what the government will provide. Olowaka says Raila has questions on the use of the Eurobond and not evidence. Questions remain unanswered. Mr. Black says they should investigate without fear or favor without Raila. They have lost 5 days already. Ruto Arab Chepko says nope, everyone is entitled to give evidence or withdraw it according to the rule of law. And finally, Annette on Twitter says, no, the EACC is just trying to silence and intimidate those who know much on corruption and government. Those are your views on the big question discussion tonight. Many thanks for participating, and thank you for watching KTN Prime. Coming up shortly is a special discussion on the World Trade Organization Ministerial Conference with KTN's Yvonne Okwara. Stand by for that. I'm Ben Kitili. Good night from the KTN News Center.